Greetings, Nerevar. You have returned to the heart of Red Mountain, but this time you will not face me in battle. Instead, you will listen to me as I narrate some of the most terrifying tales from across Tamriel and beyond. Tales of horror, madness, and betrayal that will chill your blood and haunt your dreams. These are the stories that I have collected over the centuries, waiting for the day when you would come back to me. Welcome to Dagoth Ur's Creepypasta Corner. Are you ready to hear the truth? Here are the rules. One person picks who lives, then they pick who dies. The person who lives repeats steps 1 and 2, until there's only one left. This family reunion has certainly taken an unexpected turn, to put it mildly. In fact, it's been quite chaotic. Last year's event was memorable mostly for Uncle Henry's unfortunate incident, where he couldn't physically contain himself and had an embarrassing excremental mishap next to the cornhole station. This year, we decided to switch things up from cornhole and opt for beer pong instead. However, at the moment, none of the planned activities are underway. We're all still trying to come to terms with the reality of what's unfolding. It's surreal to contemplate that the once vibrant Chisholm family with 57 living members is now facing the sobering prospect of being reduced down to just 1. We have till 9 o'clock tonight to do so. Let me take a step back and provide some context on how we all found ourselves in this situation at the Mesa Presbyterian Church Community Center. Despite the fact that I don't reside in Arizona, nor do most of us, Terry's and Monica and Vincent's families are the exceptions. They're the locals here. The rest of us travel it here by plane or car. Personally, Mealy, along with my mother, Valerie, made the journey from North Carolina. We're from Millbrook, a town near Raleigh, and I've called that area home since I was an infant. My mother holds a white-collar position at a pharmaceutical conglomerate, while I serve as a regional manager for a cosmetic chain. We are regular folk. As the final arrival, Zelda, inevitably running behind schedule as usual, joined us. A strange phenomenon unfolded. Suddenly, all electronics ceased to function. Our phones went dead, cars refused to start, and both the lights and air conditioning shut off. Amidst the confusion, several of us attempted to depart the area, only to find ourselves inexplicably hindered by an unseen barrier, as if trapped wide in an invisible enclosure. Subsequently, every one of our phones, iPads, and laptops spontaneously activated in unison, playing a video message that outlined the aforementioned rules and conveyed enthusiasm for the forthcoming decisions we would be required to make. Once the video concluded, all of our electronic devices promptly powered down once more. We initially assumed this was an incredibly elaborate prank orchestrated by Luke. With his occupation in technology development for a private military contractor and his education at MIT, he certainly had the expertise to pull off such a stunt and to impressively convince those who were stopped by the barrier to pretend one even existed. Plus, Luke is known for his eccentric, even macabre sense of humor. However, to our surprise, Luke denied any involvement in the setup. While he admitted to finding the situation amusing at first and wishing he'd come up with it, like the rest of us, Luke quickly sobered up once the gravity of the circumstances sank in. Ben, my cousin once removed, disclosed that his phone hadn't shut down. Instead, the screen remained illuminated, displaying a single word against the black background: Choose. Casting his gaze across the diverse assembly of chiselms spanning all ages, from children to elders, each bearing the shared bond of DNA and/or the family name, Ben confronted the weighty decision ahead. Who would he select to survive, and who would he decide to die? He didn't want to make a choice, and understandably so. None of us did. Ben wrestled with his thoughts, both internally and vocally, desperately seeking a way out of this predicament. He found himself torn and conflicted, grappling with the weight of being the first to decide. Ultimately, Ben attempted to outsmart the system. He initially chose himself to live, and then, remarkably, he selected himself to die. At that critical moment, hooded figures clad in blue materialized from the periphery, converging upon Ben. We all froze in place. Neither he nor any of us could move as these mysterious entities engulfed him. His screams, his agony, his pleas echoed through the air. And then, just as they had appeared, the beings dispersed, retreating to the outskirts of our sight, leaving no trace of Ben behind, not even his clothes. As the shock of the ordeal settled upon us, Eunice's phone illuminated, signaling our release from the invisible hold that had paralyzed us. The reality of the situation dawned more upon us, and instinctively, every one of us, including my mother and me, gravitated towards family members we held most emotionally connected to, forming groups without conscious thought. Eunice's tears flowed freely, unable to contain her emotions, as she was the most empathetic member of our family. Sweet 16. Her father, Robert, known for his pragmatism, urged her to remain resilient. He reassured her that no one would fault her for the choices she was about to make. We were all victims of circumstances beyond our control, ensnared in a sinister game orchestrated by unknown forces. The chiselms, he reminded her, and everyone are known for their strength and pride and refusal to yield to anyone, even entities from beyond our world. With a nod of encouragement to his daughter, Robert voiced to her that she was loved by everyone here, and that love would endure regardless of her decisions. He gestured for her to proceed, and we waited anxiously, holding our breath. Fraught with tension, Eunice made her choices. She chose me to live and Joseph to die. Fuck. Once more, the blue hooded figures materialized, and Joseph vanished without a trace, as though he had never existed. I clutched my mother's hand tightly. We both understood why Eunice had chosen Joseph. He was 89 years old and had been prepared for his time ever since Grandma Olivia's passing a few years ago. My phone lit up. Choose. I had always been cordial with Eunice, engaging only in the obligatory, somewhat awkward family small talk. I suspected she had selected me simply because I was standing directly in her line of sight. It seemed that straightforward. Eunice's tears continued to flow, now staining Robert's turquoise button-up shirt, and it was my turn to make the decisions. Seeking much-needed solitude, I excused myself and retreated indoors to the sweltering community center. Finding solace in the kitchen, I sat down, staring at my phone with the daunting and now less transparent command before me. Choose, I deduced. Once the word went away, it would make decisions no matter what on my behalf. I placed the device onto the linoleum floor and in a fit of frustration and rage, obliterated it with the force of both my heels. My phone screen, once one solid piece, was on the ground in a million little pieces. I then look up and notice the kitchen's microwave display and read the faint word, choose. What a twisted, heart-wrenching situation my family and I were thrust into. Taking a deep breath, I resigned myself and rejoined the others. Stepping back into the warmth of the afternoon spring sun, my mother informed me of the consensus reached during my exit. Following Joseph's departure, it was decided that those aged over 75 would be the initial casualties. As our numbers dwindled, difficult decisions lay ahead, and it seemed logical to eliminate the most obvious candidates for sacrifice. I couldn't help but seethe with anger towards those orchestrating this sadistic spectacle. I longed to exact my vengeance upon them in whatever form that would be. But alas, it seemed our family had already made its grim decisions as a unit. With a heavy heart, I chose Carl to meet his fate, and the ranks of Chisholm elders began to thin. Irvin, Redding, Beth, Dawn, Hunter, and Peggy. It was Peggy to select the next victim from our dwindling clan. She chose one of the more responsible members of our family, Francine, who now found herself on the clock. With a solemn wave of farewell, Peggy bid us adieu. her final act punctuated by a prayer quietly uttered as she kneeled, before soon the hooded monsters descended upon her. In stark contrast, Luke, who had remained mostly silent since we had thought of him being the orchestrator, erupted into uncontrollable laughter. He begged to be selected. He had enough. He didn't want to participate any longer. He despised this game. It annoyed him like a paper cut and would rather be dead than toyed. But Luke was one of the smartest chiselms out of all of us. While the elder chiselms nobly sacrificed their lives for the rest of us, a group, including Luke, scoured our surroundings. They played out their time to its fullest, while we looked for anything to help us out of our situation. A group headed into the community center, some to the parking lot. Others searched the nearby grass and trees. I headed to the basketball court. The court lay empty. Standing on the pavement, I rapped on the metal poles, stomped on the concrete, and scrutinized the nets, searching for any clue. Moving to the invisible barrier, I reached out and felt nothing. It didn't even have a sensation. Through this, a few times I was frozen in place, knowing then the elders were being taken away. I found my mother seated in the shade, lost in contemplation. "There's a reason for everything," she said. "A devout Christian. This family must have done something wrong, a mortal sin that demands penance. God is angry." When all the chiselms reconvened, Valerie insisted that whoever had wronged our family step forward and explain why we were all being punished. Let us all have closure. No chiselm confessed. Each maintained innocence, insisting that none among us had committed an act so vile as to warrant this collective punishment, to dwindle our family down to one. Luke requested again to be picked, but this time to be the one who lived. He explained that he wanted to test out the process firsthand, as well as for many of us to stand next to the person who is chosen to die, for those to then get an up-close view of these hooded figures. With all the senior chiselms gone, Francine selected Howie to die, expressing deep regret and citing his diabetes diagnosis as justification. Howie accepted his fate gracefully, without protest. Luke, myself, and a few others stood closely to Howie. I held Howie's hand as the blue hooded figures reappeared. They circled Howie and us next to him. We tried our best to examine and inspect every single detail of these mysterious beings, but I found only darkness beneath their cloaks, akin to the infinite void of a heartless abyss. Maybe these figures are nothing more than pawns like us, symbols of horror rather than the puppeteers. I felt Howie's hand tighten in mine as they took him. I wouldn't move a muscle but tried to grip his back. However, he released his hand from mine after enduring for as long as he could, and I knew he was gone. Once we regained our movement, Luke's phone illuminated. We all saw his brain working in overdrive, trying to take in all the variables and make everything make sense. We waited for Luke to solve this, and as the word disappeared from his phone, Luke spoke. "I'm sorry." He chose Jimmy, the 7-year-old son of single father Terry, to live, and himself, Luke, to die. "I couldn't figure it out. I want to go now." And so the figures returned and Luke vanished. I refused to surrender just yet. There had to be an explanation. Perhaps my mother was onto something with her belief in a higher power, or maybe this was the result of human agency. A test orchestrated by our own government, a foreign entity, or even the shadowy entities of conspiracy lore like the New World Order or the Illuminati. I couldn't say for certain. But as chiselms, were we destined to be pawns in this game of sacrifice, or would we muster the courage to fight back? We were fighters by nature, just as Robert had told Eunice. I wouldn't succumb like Luke. I was determined to unravel this mystery, whether it meant saving us or not. And it dawned on me, the video message, they mentioned enjoying our forthcoming decisions, which meant they should be in some form watching us. Now, if there were beings from another dimension, then of course they would have tools and equipment beyond our human comprehension. But if on the chance they are human and bearing having equipment that was 20 years ahead of its time, secretly created by DARPA, there should be cameras around. Invisible walls I could believe, but I've never seen a camera without a lens, even a tiny one. I continued my search and asked others to continue theirs. Jenny, George, Ben. 3 more Chisholms gone. I found no cameras. After all my efforts, I was no closer to answers. I decided instead of looking outward for clues, realizing now maybe Mom was correct. I focused on the remaining Chisholms, observing their behavior closely. The sun was closing in on the horizon, the breeze picking up. We all headed inside the community center, sitting in the metal folding chairs, realizing none of us had eaten any of the food left outside. Robert's ribs, Valerie's cheesecakes. I brought chicken fried rice. All the food still on the tables, completely untouched. We ate together, perhaps for our last time as one family. We thought about those that had gone first, their funny idiosyncrasies and family stories that made them who they were and what defined their Chisholm identity. Amidst the conversation, I scrutinized the room, searching for any anomaly or imposter among us. Was there someone out of place? A doppelganger? A fraud? Everyone was acting tense, but no one in particular didn't act like themselves, or at least from what I more or less known of each member to be. If only Luke thought out loud before his departure. I could have used his brain. He was always the out-of-the-box thinker. I was grasping at straws, replaying tropes from M. Night Shyamalan or shows like Squid Game in my head. But none of those pop culture references are giving me any hints that seem to be the reasoning in this situation. No leads at all. I was still no closer to learning why. After enjoying what more very well be our final meal together, we decided to not play anymore. To not let whoever is watching see us squirm, infight, and break the bond we had as a family, as Chisholms. Robert went around and gathered our phones and electronics. We found all the center's devices that had displays and put them in trash bags as well. We left them outside as we sat close together as a family, some in prayer and some comforting others. The sun set and it turned night. We found candles in a supply room to light the main room. Larry, the chain smoker, still had his lighter, thankfully. We also packed up the rest of the food and took the trash out. Then we put the tables away and swept up. We cleaned everything else we had a part in at the community center, leaving only the chairs we occupied. One by one, no Chisholms made any further decisions. The beings came and went, taking one of us at a time. The reason behind it all ceased to matter. What remained was our bond as a family. My mother prayed during her departure just like Peggy. Eunice watched in tears as her father Robert was taken away. Edison's parting compliment on my fried rice was bittersweet. Finally, Zelda, the last to arrive, and myself were the last 2 remaining. We hugged each other while the blue-hooded figures ripped us away from one another, and I remain. The last of the Chisholms. The lights flickered back on, the central AC as well. I folded all the chairs and put them away. I blew out the candles and placed them back in their box and into the supply closet. I locked the front door of the community center and per the instructions, dropped the center's keys into the church's mail slot. I walked to my rental car in the parking lot and drove back to the Airbnb my mom and I had reserved. I found and opened my laptop, going into my files. I double-clicked the family photo we all took at last year's reunion. I saw my mom, me next to her, and all my family members standing together proudly. I stared at that picture for a long time. Well, Nerevar, I hope you enjoyed this chilling tale. The story was written by Sweaterman89, and you can find the original post in the description down below. I know it's been a while, and I want to thank those that continued to pray to the heart of Lorcan in my absence. Sometimes life just comes at you hard, and you don't have time to do the things you love. Hopefully I can get more stories out there for those still willing to listen. Sleep well, Nerevar.